It was a cold Tuesday afternoon when Emily Carter's life came crashing down in the most humiliating way possible. Right there in a grocery store parking lot where everyone could see. She had just finished her shift at the marketing agency downtown, picked up some groceries for the week, and was loading bags into the trunk of her Honda Civic when she felt it. That prickling sensation on the back of her neck, the kind that tells you someone's watching. Emily turned around, and there he was. Jason, her ex-boyfriend. The one she'd spent the last 6 months desperately trying to forget. The one she'd blocked on every platform, deleted every photo of, and prayed she'd never see again. But here he was, standing 10 feet away in the middle of the parking lot, hands shoved deep into the pockets of his black hoodie, that same twisted smile curling at the corner of his mouth. The smile that used to make her feel special. Now it just made her stomach turn. "Emily," he said, his voice calm, almost friendly. "We need to talk." She froze. Her hands gripped the edge of the trunk so hard her knuckles went white. "Jason, I don't want to talk to you," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Please, just leave me alone." He took a step closer. "You've been ignoring me for weeks, Em. That's not fair. I just want to have a conversation." Emily's heart pounded in her chest. She glanced around. There were people nearby, a mom buckling her toddler into a car seat, an older man pushing a cart toward the store entrance. But no one was paying attention. No one noticed the panic rising in her throat. "Jason, I'm serious. We're done. It's over. I don't owe you anything." His smile faded. "You think it's that easy?" he said, his voice dropping lower, colder. "You think you can just walk away from me like I'm nothing?" Emily's breath hitched. She knew that tone. She'd heard it before, right before things got ugly. "I'm leaving," she said, slamming the trunk shut and moving toward the driver's side door. But Jason was faster. He stepped in front of her, blocking her path. "You're not going anywhere until you listen to me." "Move, Jason." "Or what?" he shot back. "You gonna call the cops? Tell them your ex-boyfriend wanted to talk to you? Good luck with that." Emily's hands trembled as she reached for her phone in her coat pocket. But before she could pull it out, Jason leaned in close, so close she could smell the cigarette score on his breath. "You remember those pictures we took?" he whispered. Her blood ran cold. "The videos, too," he continued, his voice dripping with venom. "You know the ones I'm talking about, the ones you begged me to delete." Emily felt like the ground had just opened up beneath her. "You told me you deleted those," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Jason laughed, a short, cruel laugh that made her skin crawl. "Yeah, well, I lied. And if you don't start answering my calls, if you don't come back and fix this, I'm gonna send them to everyone. Your parents, your boss, that church your mom drags you to every Sunday. Everyone." Emily's vision blurred. The parking lot spun around her. She couldn't breathe. "You wouldn't," she managed to choke out. Jason shrugged, pulling out his phone and tapping the screen a few times. Then he turned it around, showing her a folder labeled with her name. Thumbnails of images she'd tried so hard to forget. "Try me," he said flatly. Emily's knees buckled. She grabbed the side of her car to steady herself. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered, tears streaming down her face now. "Because you're mine, Emily. You've always been mine. And if I can't have you, then I'm going to make sure everyone sees who you really are." He stepped back, slipping his phone into his pocket. "You've got until Friday," he said. "Come back to me, or I hit send. Your choice." And with that, He turned and walked away, disappearing between the rows of parked cars like some kind of ghost, like he'd never even been there. But Emily knew he had been, because her entire world had just shattered. She climbed into her car, locked the doors, and sat there shaking, tears pouring down her face, trying to figure out how the hell this had become her life. How did she get here? How did the boy she once loved turn into a monster holding her entire future hostage? And more terrifyingly, what was she supposed to do now? But to understand how Emily ended up in that parking lot, terrified and trapped, we have to go back. Back to when things were different. Back to when Jason wasn't a threat. Back to when he was the guy who made her feel like she mattered. It was the fall of her sophomore year at State University. Emily had just transferred in from community college, eager for a fresh start. She didn't know many people yet. She spent most of her time in the library, buried in textbooks, trying to keep up with the coursework and prove she belonged there. That's where she met him. It was a Thursday night, late October. The library was nearly empty. Emily was hunched over her laptop in one of the study rooms, struggling through an essay on American romanticism when someone knocked on the glass door. She looked up. A guy stood there, tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell just above his eyes. He had a lopsided grin and was holding 2 coffee cups. "Hey," he said, pushing the door open slightly. "You look like you could use this." Emily blinked, confused. "Do I know you?" "Not yet," he said, stepping inside and setting one of the cups down on her table. "But I'm Jason. I've seen you around campus. You always look so serious. Thought you could use a caffeine boost." Emily glanced at the cup, then back at him. She didn't know what to say. Nobody had ever done something like that for her before. Thanks," she said, her cheeks flushing. "That's really nice of you." "Don't mention it," Jason said, pulling out a chair and sitting down across from her without asking. "So what are you working on? Looks brutal." Emily laughed nervously. "Just an essay. It's not that bad. I'm just overthinking it." "You transfer in this year?" "Yeah. How'd you know?" "Lucky guess," Jason said with a shrug. "You've got that look, like you're still figuring out where you fit." Emily smiled. He wasn't wrong. They talked for over an hour that night, about classes, about hometowns, about stupid professors, and even dumber campus food. Jason was charming, funny. He made her laugh in a way she hadn't in months. And when he asked for her number before leaving, she gave it to him without hesitation. Looking back now, Emily wished she'd hesitated, wished she'd asked more questions, wished she'd noticed the way he never really talked about himself, only about her, about what she liked, what she wanted, what she was afraid of. But at the time, it felt like attention, like someone finally seeing her. And God, she'd been so desperate to be seen. They started dating a few weeks later. It happened fast. Too fast, Emily would realize much later. But in the moment, it felt right. Jason was everywhere. He'd wait for her outside her classes, walk her back to her dorm, text her constantly throughout the day. He called her every night before bed, sometimes talking until 2 or 3 in the morning. At first, Emily loved it. She'd never had someone so invested in her before. Someone who wanted to know every detail of her day, who cared about her opinions, who made her feel like the center of his world. But slowly, things started to shift. It started with little comments, innocent-sounding things that didn't seem like red flags at the time. One night, they were at a campus party, some frat house off Greek Row, packed wall to wall with sweaty college kids and cheap beer. Emily was talking to a guy from her Intro to Marketing class, laughing about something their professor had said, when Jason appeared at her side. "Who's this?" Jason asked, his voice tight. "Oh, this is Ben," Emily said brightly. "He's in my marketing class." Jason didn't smile. He just stared at Ben until the guy awkwardly excused himself and walked away. "Why'd you do that?" Emily asked, confused. "Do what?" "Scare him off like that." Jason shrugged, slipping an arm around her waist and pulling her close. "I don't like other guys talking to you. You're mine, Em. I don't share." He said it like it was romantic, like it was proof of how much he cared. And Emily, still riding the high of being wanted, convinced herself it was. But it didn't stop there. Jason started checking her phone. At first, he'd asked to see it. "Just curious who you're talking to." And Emily, wanting to prove she had nothing to hide, handed it over every time. Then he started going through it without asking. While she was in the shower, while she was asleep, while she was making dinner in his apartment. He'd scroll through her texts, her Instagram DMs, her Snapchat messages, and if he saw something he didn't like, a guy friend saying hey, a coworker asking about weekend plans, Jason would explode. "Why is this dude texting you?" he'd demand, shoving the phone in her face. "That's just Mike from work, Jason. We're on the same project team." "I don't care. Kill him to stop." "I can't just—" "Tell him, Emily, or I will." And Emily, terrified of the fight that would follow if she didn't, would send the awkward message. She'd distance herself from friends. She'd stop going out without him. She'd make herself smaller and smaller, trying to keep the peace, trying to make Jason happy. Her mom noticed. It was Thanksgiving break, their first one as a couple. Emily brought Jason home to meet her parents at their 2-story house in the suburbs just outside Charlotte. Her mom, Linda, was polite but cautious. She asked Jason questions over turkey and mashed potatoes, where he grew up, what his plans were after graduation, how he and Emily met. Jason answered everything with that same charming smile, the one that had hooked Emily in the first place. But later that night, after Jason had gone to bed in the guest room, Linda cornered Emily in the kitchen. "Honey, can I ask you something?" Emily looked up from the sink where she was rinsing dishes. "Sure, Mom. What's up?" Linda hesitated, folding and unfolding a dish towel in her hands. "Are you happy?" she finally asked. Emily frowned. "What do you mean?" "With Jason. Are you happy?" "Of course I am," Emily said, forcing a smile. "Why wouldn't I be?" Linda's eyes softened with concern. "I don't know, sweetheart. You just seem different, quieter. And Jason, he's very attentive, almost too attentive." Emily felt her defenses rise. "He cares about me, Mom. That's not a bad thing." "I know, honey. Linda sighed. "I just want to make sure he's treating you right, that he's not too controlling." "He's not controlling," Emily snapped, more harshly than she intended. "He's protective. There's a difference." Linda didn't push it. She just nodded slowly, set the dish towel down, and kissed Emily on the forehead. "Okay, baby, I trust you. Just promise me if something ever feels wrong, you'll tell me, okay?" Emily nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. But she didn't tell her mom. She didn't tell anyone. Because deep down, Emily had already started to believe that this was just what love looked like. That jealousy was passion. That control was care. That if she just tried a little harder, was a little better, Jason would stop being angry all the time. She was wrong. But by the time she realized it, it was already too late. The breaking point in their relationship didn't come all at once. It was a slow burn. A series of fights that got louder, meaner, more public. Jason's temper, which Emily had learned to tiptoe around, started spilling out in front of other people. At parties, at restaurants, in the middle of campus. And the worst part? Emily had started to believe she deserved it. But then came the photos. It was a Friday night in early December, their senior year. Finals were over, and Jason had invited Emily over to his cramped off-campus apartment to celebrate. The place was small, a studio with peeling wallpaper, a lumpy futon, and a tiny kitchenette that smelled like old takeout. But it was his, and Emily had spent more nights there than she cared to count. They were drinking wine, cheap stuff from a box, and watching some action movie Jason had picked. Emily wasn't really paying attention. She was exhausted from a week of exams and just wanted to relax. But Jason had other plans. "Hey," he said, setting his glass down and turning to face her. "Let's do something fun." Emily glanced at him. "Like what?" He grinned, pulling out his phone. "Let's take some pictures. Just you and me. Something private. Something special." Emily's stomach tightened. She knew exactly what he meant. "Jason, I don't know." "Come on, Em. Don't be boring." "I'm not being boring. You're being uptight," he interrupted, his tone shifting. "We've been together for over a year. You don't trust me?" Emily hesitated. She hated when he used that word, uptight, like there was something wrong with her for having boundaries. "I trust you," she said quietly. I don't know if I'm comfortable with that." Jason sighed, setting his phone down and running a hand through his hair. "Emily, it's not a big deal. It's just for us. No one else is ever going to see them. I promise. It's just, I want something to remember you by. Something that's ours." He reached over, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, his voice softening. "You're beautiful, Em. I just want to capture that." "Is that so wrong?" Emily felt the familiar pull, the guilt, the fear that if she said no, he'd get angry, that he'd call her boring again, that he'd make her feel like she was the problem. So she said yes. And for the next hour, Jason took photos, and videos, of Emily in ways she'd never let anyone else see her, in ways that made her feel vulnerable and exposed and deeply uncomfortable. But Jason kept reassuring her, kept telling her she looked amazing, kept promising that it was just between them. "See?" he said afterward, lying next to her on the futon, scrolling through the images on his phone. "That wasn't so bad, was it?" Emily forced a smile. "No, I guess not." "And remember, Em, these are just for us. Our private thing. I'd never show them to anyone." "Promise?" Jason leaned over and kissed her forehead. "I promise." But promises, Emily would learn, meant nothing to Jason. 2 weeks later, everything fell apart. It was the weekend before Christmas break. Someone was throwing a party at one of the houses near campus, one of those massive end-of-semester blowouts where half the student body showed up. Emily didn't really want to go. She was tired, stressed about going home for the holidays, and honestly, she was getting sick of Jason's mood swings. But Jason insisted, so they went. The party was loud, chaotic, packed with drunk people and pounding bass. Emily stuck close to Jason at first, but eventually she ran into a friend from her marketing class, a girl named Sarah who she hadn't seen in months. They hugged, laughed, caught up over cheap vodka punch. For the first time in a long time, Emily felt like herself again. Not Jason's girlfriend. Not someone walking on eggshells. Just Emily. But then Jason found her. "Emily," he said sharply, grabbing her arm. "We're leaving." Emily blinked, confused. "What? Why?" "Because I said so. Let's go." Sarah frowned. Dude, she's in the middle of a conversation. Jason's jaw tightened. This doesn't concern you. Jason, stop, Emily said, pulling her arm free. You're being rude. I'm being rude? Jason laughed bitterly. You've been ignoring me all night to talk to people you don't even care about. That's not true. It is true, Jason shouted, loud enough that people around them started turning to look. You drag me to this stupid party, then you ditch me the second we get here. You're embarrassing me, Emily. Emily's face burned. Jason, you're the one making a scene right now. Oh, I'm making a scene? Jason's voice dripped with sarcasm. That's rich. You know what? Maybe if you weren't such a boring, selfish... He didn't finish the sentence, because Emily slapped him. It wasn't hard, but it was enough. The room went silent. Everyone was staring now. Jason's face went red. His eyes filled with something dark and cold. We're done, Emily said, her voice shaking. I'm done, Jason. I can't do this anymore. And before he could respond, she turned and walked out of the party, tears streaming down her face. She never looked back. The next few months were the best Emily had felt in years. She moved into a small, one-bedroom apartment in the city, about 30 minutes from campus. It wasn't much, just a studio with a Murphy bed and a narrow kitchenette, but it was hers. For the first time in a long time, she could breathe. She graduated in May, landed an entry-level job at a small marketing agency downtown, and started rebuilding her life piece by piece. She reconnected with old friends. She went to therapy. She started going to the gym. She even went on a few dates, nothing serious, but it felt good to remember that there were good men out there. Men who didn't yell. Men who didn't check her phone. Men who didn't make her feel small. Emily thought she was free. She thought Jason was in the past. She was wrong. Because Jason hadn't forgotten about her, and he sure as hell hadn't deleted those photos. He'd kept them. Every single one. Backed up on his laptop, his phone, a flash drive hidden in his desk drawer. He'd kept them like ammunition, waiting for the right moment to strike. And that moment came 6 months after Emily left him. It started with a text. Emily was lying in bed one night, scrolling through Instagram before going to sleep, when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She frowned, tapping the message. Hey, Em, it's Jason. We need to talk. Emily's heart sank. She stared at the screen for a long moment, her thumb hovering over the delete button. But before she could press it, another message came through. I know you blocked me, but that doesn't change anything. We're not done, Emily. We'll never be done. Emily's hands started to shake. She blocked the number immediately and set her phone down on the nightstand, her pulse racing. It's fine, she told herself. He's just trying to get under your skin. Ignore him. He'll give up eventually. But Jason didn't give up. The next night, he messaged her on Instagram from a fake account, then Facebook, then Snapchat. Each message was the same, demanding to talk, demanding to see her, demanding that she stop being childish and just hear him out. Emily blocked every account. She deleted the apps. She changed her privacy settings. But Jason kept finding ways in. And then, one night, everything escalated. Emily was at work, sitting in her cubicle and reviewing copy for a client's ad campaign, when her phone buzzed with an email notification. She glanced down at the screen and froze. The subject line read, "You really want to ignore me?" The sender was Jason's old college email. Emily's stomach dropped. Her fingers trembled as she opened the message. Inside was a single image attachment. A screenshot of one of the photos he'd taken that night in his apartment. Blurred just enough to avoid being explicit, but clear enough that Emily knew exactly what it was. And below it, a message. Answer your phone, or I start sending these to people who matter. Your parents, your boss, your church, everyone. You've got 48 hours, Em. Don't test me. Emily's vision blurred. The office around her seemed to spin. She slammed her laptop shut, grabbed her purse, and ran to the bathroom, locking herself in a stall as sobs tore through her chest. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. But it was. And Jason had just made it very, very clear. He wasn't bluffing. Emily spent the next 2 days in a constant state of terror. Every notification made her flinch. Every phone call from an unknown number sent her into a panic. She couldn't eat. She couldn't sleep. She'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, imagining the worst-case scenario over and over again. Her parents seeing those photos. Her boss seeing those photos. Her mom's church friends seeing those photos. The humiliation was suffocating. The shame was unbearable. And the worst part? A tiny, irrational part of Emily's brain kept whispering that maybe she deserved this, that she'd been stupid to trust Jason, that she should have known better, that this was somehow her fault. But deep down, Emily knew that wasn't true. She knew this wasn't her fault. This was Jason. This was abuse. This was a crime. But knowing that didn't make it any less terrifying. On the second night, Emily finally broke down and called her best friend Rachel. They agreed to meet the next morning at a small diner on the edge of town, a quiet place with vinyl booths and checkered floors where they used to go during college. Emily arrived first, sliding into a booth in the back corner, her hands wrapped around a mug of coffee she couldn't bring herself to drink. Rachel showed up 10 minutes later, her face etched with concern. "Emily, what's going on?" she asked, sliding into the booth across from her. "You sounded terrified on the phone." Emily's eyes welled up with tears. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words got stuck in her throat. Rachel reached across the table and grabbed her hand. "Whatever it is, you can tell me." Emily took a shaky breath, and then, slowly, she told Rachel everything. About the photos, about Jason's threats, about the email, about the 48-hour deadline. By the time she finished, Rachel's face had gone from concern to fury. "That's psycho!" Rachel hissed. "Emily, you need to go to the police, right now." Emily shook her head. "I can't." "What do you mean you can't?" "Rachel, if I go to the police, this becomes public. There'll be reports, court documents, lawyers. My parents will find out. My boss will find out. Everyone will know." "Emily, Jason's blackmailing you. That's illegal. You didn't do anything wrong." "I know that," Emily said, her voice breaking. "But it doesn't feel like it. It feels like I'm the one who messed up. Like people are going to judge me, not him." Rachel's jaw tightened. "Then screw them. Anyone who judges you for this isn't worth your time." "Easy for you to say," Emily whispered. "You're not the one whose life is about to be destroyed." Rachel leaned forward, her voice softening. "Emily, listen to me. If you don't report this, Jason wins. He gets to control you for the rest of your life. Is that what you want?" Emily wiped her eyes, her hands trembling. "I don't know what I want," she admitted. "I just want this to stop." Rachel squeezed her hand. "Then let's make it stop. Together." But Emily couldn't bring herself to do it. Not yet. She spent the next few days spiraling, scrolling through Reddit threads about revenge porn victims, reading legal blogs about blackmail and extortion, diving into horror stories of women whose lives were destroyed when their private photos went public. Some of the stories ended with justice. The abuser got arrested, went to trial, served time. But other stories didn't end well at all. The photos leaked anyway. The victim lost their job. La famille disowned them. Their reputation was destroyed forever. And Emily couldn't stop imagining herself in those stories. She imagined walking into her parents' house and seeing her dad's face when he found out. She imagined sitting in her boss's office while HR explained that they had to let her go. She imagined walking into church on Sunday and feeling every pair of eyes on her, every whisper burning into her skin. The shame was paralyzing. And then Jason escalated again. It was a Friday morning. Emily was at her desk, pretending to focus on work, but really just staring blankly at her computer screen, when an email notification popped up. Her work email. From Jason. Her blood ran cold. She clicked on it with shaking hands. The subject line read, "Last Chance." Inside was another photo, this one even more explicit, and below it, a message. "You ignored my deadline, so now I'm giving you a new one. Meet me tonight at 8 p.m. at the coffee shack on Elm Street, or I send everything to your boss, your parents, and anyone else I can think of. This is your last chance, Emily. Don't make me do this." Emily's vision blurred. She felt like she was going to be sick. He'd sent it to her work email. He knew where she worked. He'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. And in that moment, Emily realized something. Jason wasn't going to stop. He was never going to stop. Not unless she made him. That afternoon, Emily drove back to her parents' house. She didn't call ahead, she didn't text. She just got in her car and drove the 40-minute route to the quiet suburban neighborhood where she'd grown up, her hands gripping the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. By the time she pulled into the driveway, tears were streaming down her face. She sat there for a moment, staring at the front door, trying to find the courage to walk inside. Finally, she got out of the car and knocked. Her mom answered, her face lighting up with surprise. "Emily! Honey, what are you doing here? I thought you had work today." Emily's lip quivered. "Mom, I need to talk to you and Dad. Right now." Linda's smile faded. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" "Just, please, can we sit down?" Linda nodded, worry creasing her face. "Of course. Come in." Emily followed her mother into the kitchen, where her dad, Tom, was sitting at the table reading the newspaper. He looked up when they walked in, his face brightening. "Em, what a nice surprise!" But the smile faded when he saw the look on Emily's face. "Emily, what's going on?" he asked, setting the paper down. Emily sat down at the table, her parents flanking her on either side. For a moment, she couldn't speak. She just sat there, staring at her hands, trying to find the words. And then, finally, she told them everything. She told them about Jason, about the photos, about the threats, about the emails, about the deadline. She told them how scared she was, how ashamed she felt, how she didn't know what to do. And when she finished, she waited for the judgment, for the disappointment, for the blame. But it never came. Instead, her mom burst into tears and pulled Emily into a tight hug. "Oh, baby," Linda whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Tom's face had gone stone cold. His jaw was clenched, his hands balled into fists on the table. "That son of a bitch," he muttered. "I'm gonna kill him." "Tom," Linda started. "I'm serious, Linda. If he thinks he can threaten my daughter like this and get away with it, he's got another thing coming." Emily shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "Dad, please, I don't know what to do." Tom reached over and took Emily's hand, his voice softening. "Emily, listen to me. You didn't do anything wrong. You hear me? Nothing. This is not your fault. This is Jason's fault, and he's going to pay for it. Linda nodded, wiping her eyes. Your father's right, sweetheart. We're going to get through this together. We're going to call a lawyer. We're going to go to the police, and we're going to make sure that boy never hurts you again. Emily looked at her parents, her heart aching with relief and gratitude. For the first time in months, she didn't feel alone. The next morning, Emily's parents hired an attorney. Her name was Margaret Collins, a sharp, no-nonsense woman in her 50s who specialized in cases involving digital harassment, revenge porn, and domestic abuse. They met in her office downtown, a sleek space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Emily sat between her parents, her hands clasped tightly in her lap as Margaret reviewed the evidence. Screenshots of Jason's messages, the emails, the threats. After a long moment, Margaret looked up, her expression serious. Emily, what Jason is doing is illegal. This falls under multiple categories: extortion, harassment, and depending on your state's laws, revenge porn. Even if he hasn't distributed the images yet, the threat alone is enough to pursue criminal charges. Emily's chest tightened. What happens if I press charges? We file a police report, Margaret explained. The police will open an investigation. They'll collect evidence, interview Jason, and depending on what they find, the district attorney may move forward with charges. In the meantime, we can also file for a restraining order to keep Jason away from you. And what if the photos leak anyway? Emily asked, her voice barely a whisper. Margaret's expression softened. That's a valid concern. But here's the thing. Most abusers like Jason are cowards. They use threats because they think it gives them power. But the moment you take that power away by reporting them, by making it clear that their behavior has legal consequences, they usually back down. They don't want to go to jail. Emily swallowed hard. And if he doesn't back down? Then we make sure he goes to jail, Margaret said firmly. But Emily, you can't let fear stop you from protecting yourself. Jason is banking on your silence. He's counting on you being too ashamed or too scared to fight back. Don't give him that power. Tom squeezed Emily's shoulder. We're with you, sweetheart, whatever you decide. Emily closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and nodded. Okay, she said quietly. Let's do it. Let's file the report. Margaret smiled. Good. Let's get started. Filing the police report was one of the hardest things Emily had ever done. She sat in a small, sterile room at the local police station, across from a female detective named Officer Ramirez, and recounted the entire story once again. The photos, the threats, the emails, the timeline. Officer Ramirez listened carefully, taking notes, her expression calm and professional. You did the right thing by coming forward, she said when Emily finished. A lot of victims don't. They're too scared, or they think it won't make a difference. But it does. Emily nodded, her throat tight. What happens now? We'll open an investigation, Ramirez explained. We'll contact Jason, inform him of the report, and collect any evidence we can. His phone, his computer, his social media accounts. If we find proof that he's in possession of those images and has made threats to distribute them, we'll pursue charges for extortion and potentially revenge porn, depending on whether any images were shared. And the restraining order? Your attorney will help you file that separately. Once it's granted, Jason won't be able to contact you, come near you, or even mention you online. If he violates it, he'll be arrested immediately. Emily felt a flicker of hope. So, this might actually stop him? Ramirez leaned forward, her voice steady. Emily, I can't promise you that this will be easy. Legal cases like this can take time, but I can promise you that we're going to do everything in our power to hold Jason accountable. You're not alone in this." Emily's eyes welled up with tears. "Thank you." Ramirez reached across the table and squeezed Emily's hand. "Thank you for being brave enough to speak up." But while the police investigation was underway and the legal system slowly churned into motion, Emily faced another battle, an internal one. The shame, the fear, the constant dread that Jason might leak the photos anyway. It was eating her alive. She couldn't focus at work. She barely slept. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart raced. Every time she saw a car that looked like Jason's, she had a panic attack. And then, one night, Emily had a realization. She was sitting in her apartment, scrolling through her phone, when she stumbled across an article about a woman who had been blackmailed by her ex-boyfriend with intimate photos. But instead of letting him control her, instead of living in fear, the woman had done something radical. She'd taken control of the narrative herself. She'd started an OnlyFans account. She'd chosen what to share, how to share it, and on her own terms. She'd turned something that was supposed to humiliate her into something that gave her power. She'd built a supportive community, made money, and most importantly, she'd stopped letting her ex hold anything over her head. Emily stared at the article for a long time, her mind racing. Could she do that? Could she really take something so painful, so shameful, and flip it into something she controlled? It felt impossible, terrifying, radical, but also liberating. Because the truth was, Jason's power came from one thing: Emily's fear of being seen, her fear of being judged, her fear that if people saw those photos, she'd be ruined. But what if she stopped being afraid? What if she took that fear away from him? What if she showed the world on her own terms? Emily spent the next week researching. She read articles, watched YouTube videos, scrolled through Reddit threads. She learned about OnlyFans, about how it worked, how to protect her identity, how to set boundaries, how to price content. She talked to Rachel about it over coffee one afternoon, nervously explaining her idea. Rachel's eyes went wide. "Wait, you're serious?" "I think so," Emily said quietly. "I mean, Jason's threatening to leak my photos anyway. What if I just do it myself, on my own terms? What if I take away his power by not being ashamed anymore?" Rachel leaned back in her chair, processing. "That's actually kind of genius. But Em, are you sure? This is a huge decision." "I know," Emily said, "but I'm tired of being scared. I'm tired of letting Jason control my life. And honestly, if people are going to see me anyway, I'd rather it be my choice." Rachel nodded slowly. "Okay, then I support you. But you have to promise me something." "What?" "Promise me you're doing this for you. Not to prove a point to Jason, not because you feel like you have to, but because you want to." Emily smiled, a real smile, for the first time in weeks. "I promise." Setting up her OnlyFans page took longer than Emily expected. She spent hours choosing a username, setting up payment info, designing a bio. She decided to keep her face mostly hidden at first, just in case, using angles, lighting, and editing to maintain some anonymity. She set clear boundaries for herself. No personal information, no meetups, no custom requests that made her uncomfortable. She was in control, completely. And when she finally hit publish on her first post, her hands were shaking. But not from fear, from power. For the first time since Jason had cornered her in that parking lot, Emily felt like she had her life back. She wasn't a victim anymore. She was a woman who made her own choices. It didn't take long for Jason to find out. Emily had been running her OnlyFans account for about 2 weeks, posting a few times a week, slowly building a small but supportive following. when her phone exploded with notifications one night. Text after text, call after call, all from blocked numbers. Emily's stomach sank. She knew exactly who it was. She opened one of the messages. "Are you serious right now? You're really gonna humiliate yourself like this? You're disgusting, Emily. You've lost your mind." Another message came through. "You think this makes you strong? It makes you pathetic. You're a joke." And another. "I can't believe I ever cared about you. You're nothing. You hear me? Nothing." Emily's first instinct was panic. But then something shifted. She read the messages again, and instead of fear, she felt nothing. No shame, no guilt, no fear. Because Jason's words didn't have power over her anymore. She screenshotted every message and forwarded them to her attorney and Officer Ramirez. And then she blocked every number and went back to editing her next post. But Jason wasn't done. A few days later, he made his biggest mistake. In a fit of rage, Jason took a censored screenshot of Emily's OnlyFans profile, blurred just enough to avoid explicit content, and posted it in a group chat with about 20 mutual friends from college. His message was vicious. "Look what Emily's doing now. Guess she really is as trashy as I thought." But what Jason didn't realize was that several people in that group chat immediately screenshot his message and sent it to Emily. And more importantly, they reported him to the police. Because posting someone's intimate content without consent, even in censored form, was still a crime. And Jason had just handed law enforcement the final piece of evidence they needed. 3 months later, Emily sat in a small county courthouse, her parents on one side, Rachel on the other, and a victim's advocate beside her. Across the aisle, Jason sat with his public defender, looking smaller than Emily remembered, less intimidating, less powerful, just pathetic. The trial was short. The prosecution presented the evidence, screenshots of Jason's threats, proof that he'd distributed Emily's image to others, expert testimony about digital harassment and coercive control. Jason's lawyer tried to argue that Emily's OnlyFans account proved she didn't really care about privacy, that she was just trying to make him look bad. But the judge shut that argument down immediately. "Consent to share images on one's own terms," the judge said sharply, "does not equal consent for someone else to abuse, threaten, or distribute private material. The defendant's actions constitute extortion, harassment, and revenge porn under state law. This court does not tolerate digital abuse." The verdict came down swiftly. Guilty on all counts. Jason was sentenced to 2 years in prison, 5 years of probation, and a permanent restraining order. When the bailiff led him away in handcuffs, Emily finally exhaled. It was over. 6 months after the trial, Emily's life looked completely different. She'd moved into a brighter apartment with big windows and hardwood floors. She'd been promoted at her marketing agency. She'd rebuilt her relationship with her parents, who now understood her in ways they never had before. And her OnlyFans account? It was thriving. Not because Emily needed the money, though it helped, but because she'd built a small, respectful community of subscribers who treated her like a human being, who respected her boundaries, who appreciated her on her terms. Emily had also started therapy. Real, consistent therapy that helped her unpack the years of manipulation, control, and abuse she'd endured. She learned to separate shame from autonomy. She learned that her value wasn't tied to what Jason, or anyone, thought of her. And most importantly, she learned that taking control of her own story was the most powerful thing she could ever do. It was Thanksgiving again, a year after the trial, and Emily sat at her parents' dining room table, surrounded by family. Her mom had made her famous green bean casserole. Her dad was carving the turkey. Rachel was there, laughing over a glass of wine. Even Emily's younger cousin had come, the same one Jason had once threatened with messages. Everything felt warm, safe, right. After dinner, Emily stood up, raising her glass. "I just want to say something," she began, her voice steady. "This time last year, I didn't think I'd make it to this table. I didn't think I'd survive what I was going through. But I did. And I'm here because of the people in this room. Because you believed me. Because you stood by me. Because you reminded me that I'm worth more than anyone's threats, anyone's shame, anyone's control." Her mom wiped her eyes. Her dad nodded, his jaw tight with emotion. "So thank you," Emily continued, "for loving me even when I didn't love myself, for fighting for me when I didn't know how to fight, and for reminding me that my life is mine, not his, not anyone's, mine." She raised her glass higher, to surviving, to healing, and to new beginnings. Everyone clinked glasses, and Emily sat back down, her heart full in a way it hadn't been in years. She was free, truly, completely free. But Emily's story doesn't end there, because this isn't just a story about one woman's survival. It's a story about a crisis that's happening all over the world every single day. Digital blackmail, revenge porn, coercive control. It's happening to women, to men, to teenagers, to people of every background, every income level, every walk of life. And too many of them stay silent. Too many of them believe they deserve it. Too many of them think they're alone. But they're not. If you're watching this and you're going through something similar, please hear this. It is not your fault. You are not alone. And there is help. Document everything. Save every message, every email, every threat. Don't delete anything. Tell someone you trust, a friend, a family member, a therapist. Don't carry this alone. Contact law enforcement. What your ex is doing is illegal. It's extortion. It's harassment. And in most states, it's revenge porn. You have legal options. Reach out to organizations that specialize in digital abuse. Groups like the Cyber Civil Rights Initiative, RAIN, and the National Domestic Violence Hotline have resources specifically for situations like this. And if you can, don't let them control your narrative. Whether that means going public, pressing charges, or just refusing to be ashamed, take your power back. Because the truth is, abusers rely on one thing: your silence. They rely on your fear. They rely on you believing that you're the problem. But you're not. They are. So what do you think about Emily's story? Have you or someone you know ever dealt with something like this? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us know what state you're watching from. And if this story moved you, if it made you think, if it reminded you that survival is possible, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because stories like Emily's matter. They shine a light on the darkness. They break the silence. And they remind us all that no matter how trapped we feel, there's always a way out. You just have to be brave enough to take the first step. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. And remember, your life is yours. Don't let anyone take that away from you.